Have you been following the controversy about what's going on with the Padres TV and radio broadcast teams? Because they've been shuffling the deck, and there's a lot of people thinking that something's going on. Something's cooking with Orsillo and Mudd and Jesse Agler and Tony Gwynn Jr.
Well, there's all kinds of ways to structure your broadcast team. The Padres with or Donnie and Mudd have had consistency up until this year. Bob Scanlon has kind of been the third guy in the mix who would jump into the booth when they give these guys weekends off. I don't quite understand why now we got rotating hosts and guests and play-by-play and color guys. Tony Gwynn Jr. has obviously been more on the TV side recently than it had been ever. Agler has done some pinch hitting when Orsillo was being a national star. Does Mark Grant need to be on the radio side? No, unless they're going to tone his act down. I like Mark. Sometimes he goes off on real tangents. It's kind of change of pace, but sometimes it's a little too much. But that's why you have producers in the truck who can guide him. And there's some things I roll my eyes at when they're doing a broadcast and Mark goes off on a tangent and Mudd's talking about walking the dog out in Alpine or making Jell-O or whatever the topic on the table, non-baseball is. Some of it's fun, some of it's a little too much, but then they revert back and they get back to baseball. I don't know from a baseball fan standpoint, you want to analyze every ball and every strike. I don't think you want to do that, but there has to be an even Steven flow there. If I were king, popular broadcast team, leave it in place. Don't start screwing with it. If I were king, director in the truck, you tell them through the headset, guys, let's zero in on baseball. The one area that I think they miss a lot on, and I've never gotten an explanation, and they won't answer my questions. There are so many storylines in baseball, and you got all these guys on this broadcast team with baseball experience. Not talking about Don, but I'm talking about Mudd, and I'm talking about Scanlon, I'm talking about Anthony Gwynn. There's so many other baseball storylines out there that these guys should be commenting on, can be commenting on during the course of the broadcast. Now, we don't want the broadcast to become a talk show. However, you got pennant races, and you got bench clearing brawls, and you got trades, and you got injuries. These guys can step away from analyzing every at-bat and get into some give and take with each other because they're all sharp, talking, smart, experienced people. That's one thing I would really like to see. And the other factor, and I do understand it's a brown and gold Padre broadcast, but if I were king, there's no reason you can't do out-of-town scoreboard updates in some of those breaks at the end of the third inning, the sixth inning, and maybe in the eighth inning, because there's a lot of other games with a lot of other storylines. Somebody beats somebody 21-0, or there's been a bench clearing incident, or what the hell's happening at Dodger Stadium, or this mess with the Yankees, or the Mets have fallen into the sewer. Those are things that fans, because not everybody's just a Padre fan watching these telecasts. They're baseball fans from all over who come to San Diego. You should be covering the significant storylines in these other games. And there's no reason they can't use one of those guys to do a scoreboard update in the third, the sixth, and maybe even going into the ninth inning. That's one man's opinion on radio and TV broadcasting Padre baseball. And baseball fan wearing the letter P on his hat. Does that stand for Phillies, Pirates, Punk, Popular? What's the P stand for? John,
this is Philadelphia, man. The Independence Hall, where they signed the Declaration of Independence, our inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So I'm wearing a Phillies hat today on purpose. But I'll tell you what, we should figure out a way to get Hacksaw and Curran and Laz and bring Chet 40 back and get you guys broadcasting Padre baseball. You could do it just the way you want. But seriously,
all right, you're a baseball purist, so you tell me, answer the question. What do you want on the broadcast? Do you like this rotation, or do you want what the king wants? And then what about covering all the other aspects of baseball aside from just the Padre game against the Texas Rangers tonight? What's your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, it would be nice to get a little bit of the out-of-town scoreboard kind of updates. And sometimes they have, Scanlon does a little bit of that at times. But, I mean, that's something that – what's the young woman's name that's on the pregame show? She could do yeah, Mary Lou's, excuse me. So she could do some of that work as well. But for me, the chemistry between Don and Mud is just so fantastic that even when the game is really ugly, they still make the broadcast fun. But I was listening to the radio at one point, and I heard Mark Grant on the radio. It didn't sound right. I was like, is that Mud? I'm not sure. Good on Tony, Jr. getting on TV, and he does a great job, but the chemistry with Don's still not the same. I mean, Jay Posner and a couple other guys on Padres Twitter were commenting that, maybe Orsillo signed a big contract. Maybe is that creating a little friction amongst the crew? I mean, what do you think?
I don't know if I'd go that deep, that far. Don's really good. Don's really great. Don's really popular. He's probably more popular than any other broadcaster that now had, aside from maybe the venerable Jerry Coleman. There's somebody within the upper echelon of that Padre TV deal that's experimenting. Don't need to experiment. You got a popular group. Let it grow. Now, I would give a direction. If I'm the director in the truck, this is what I want on my broadcast. Guys, you make this work. Mike Pomerantz is great. Let Mike Pomerantz be Mr. Scoreboard. And let Scanlon and Mudd do topics on the table. I would even loan them that phraseology for a Padre broadcast because, like I say, there's so many other storylines to talk about, whether it's a significant injury or a big trade rumor or a collapse of a pitching staff or Major League Baseball's investigation. Hey, broaden the horizons. That's, if I were king, that's what I would do. And I like those guys a great deal, although I don't like lime jello with fruit. And I don't think Mark Grant should be giving me menu directions for my lunch and dessert, but that's where we are.
It's just awesome. I mean, seriously, you always have a unique point of view when it comes to being in the broadcast booth. You did it for so long, but it is interesting with all, just something to talk about for Padre fans who were so upset with the team. We want to talk about something else.
Okay, let's go from Padre baseball